other little bits and pieces. And after a while, when the POWs discovered that I was who I was and what I said I was, stuff started coming. And it came until I now personally own 90% of everything that came out of Hanoi. There are still bits and pieces out there. Some museums have small pieces. But I have the largest collection that exists. It is my hope and dream to bring it to Florida and build the world's largest POW museum. I also... Well, 2/3 of the state of Maine live here in the wintertime, so it won't be far from home. So it's a wonderful, wonderful display. You can't imagine it until you see it. Now, I brought some artifacts for you to look at. The mannequin holding the short pajamas, those were the black pajamas, and they originally were quite black. And over the years, those particular ones were worn by a captain named, a retired lieutenant colonel named David Ford. David passed away this fall. He's no longer with us. He went west. But you can see, even there, he tried to do the things to keep something alive. You'll see the letter F, that he took thread out of a blanket and made his own needle to put his initial in. And then because he loved sartorial splendor, as he called it, he pegged his pants. Because he's a boy from the 50s, so he took his loosely, sewed them all away, and I have those. But on the table also you're going to see 3 items that I treasure dearly. One is a small Protestant cross. It took the boy 3.5 years to make that out of a spoon. He hit it every day because he was caught with it. It would cost him his life, or at least a severe beating. Along with it is a Catholic rosary and a small razor blade. The razor blade is North Vietnamese, and he made that out of bamboo sticks, and the riser, cords from the riser was parachute. He carried it with him for 3.5 years, from hole to hole to tree to tree. In my collection at home, I didn't bring down because I couldn't get the case over in time, is a chain and lock. Originally it was over 6 feet long. It was on his leg every day for 3.5 years. And he had to throw it over his shoulder when they moved him from camp to camp and hold to hold. He can still build you his cell. The cell was a hole in the ground, 4 feet deep, 6 feet long. It was a grave. And if he died, they would have just thrown dirt on him. And then he took bamboo poles, 6 feet long, put them 2 feet in the ground so he had 4 feet of height. And then he took great big giant bamboo type or some jungle leaves for his roof. And I said, well, how did you keep on there? He said, well, the Vietnamese taught us you take dried bamboo, poles that were laying on the ground, and with all your might hit them against a tree, and they shattered and made 3, 4, 5, 6-inch needles. And that's how you built your roof to keep it dry from the rain. And he still remembers it. And I told him, one day I've got to get you to get on tape and really put it down with the emotion of somebody who did it and built it. I mean, my paltry words that are here to tell their stories, and I hope some of you who got the book will enjoy it. It's taken me 14 years to even come close to getting it published. And to me, Wayne Smith gave me one of the highest compliments anybody ever could. He called this book the Anne Frank Diary of our times. It is a couple of hundred poems written in the cells of Hanoi. These are not poems that were written 50 years after they came home. You've got so many books and memoirs guys are writing today, and sometimes facts change over 50, 60 years. But these were written in the cells. I have 90% of them. They're on toilet paper, they're on rice paper, they're on cigarette wrappers, anything they could get their hands on. Some of the writing, which Wayne was very good at, is only about a 16th or less of an inch long. And they wrote their poetry. John Gorling, who retired as a Major General, was captured in 1966 and went through terrible, terrible times and things. In this book, he writes, I had no weapon to fight my enemy. And he said, my enemy was not the Vietnamese. My enemy was time. And I had to kill time. So he wrote the poems. And they are some of the most magnificent poems you're ever going to read in your life. And from there, all the other POWs started saying, first I was going to make a display out of it. And then they started coming, and I would say, hey, Lee, do you know Bill? Yeah. Have you read his poems? I said, what poems? Oh, he did some good ones. And none of them had ever been published before. So I decided I have to do a book. That's what it has to be, a book. There's so many of them. And what I'd like to do, and sadly it's going to be a little tough for me because I originally was pinned up and it was easy to talk. Before I close anything out, I want to read you just a few that have great, great meaning to me that are in this book. These are Robbie Reisner's rules. Robbie Reisner was the senior ranking officer for most of the time in the prison between he and Jim Stockdale until they took him away to meeting and keep him in solitary. Robbie Reisner has been, always will be my hero. He passed away a couple of months ago from Alzheimer's. But Robbie Reisner, I call him Joe. Robbie Reisner was captured on his second flight. I mean, he earned 2 Air Force Crosses, by the way. And the second time he was shot down, he was captured. Took him to Hanoi. Well, before Robbie had been captured, Time magazine did a beautiful cover with him on it, and it said, "This is the epitome of an American fighting man." When they captured him, they took him to Hanoi, took him in for his first quiz, and they threw that magazine in his face. They said, "We know who you are, and we know what you are." He said, "There are only 4 men that we want as prisoners of war. Johnson, McNamara," said, I can't remember the third guy, never will, "and you, and we have you." They tortured, he has the dubious record of being the only man ever tortured for 365 days. Every single day in the torture. And one day we were having dinner together, and he decided to tell me a couple of his stories. And he said, "You know, Lee," he said, "I'd have been in prison about 6 weeks when I got my first real meal." And he said, "It was a loaf of French bread." He said, "And I was ecstatic, and I could see it had sesame seeds on it." He said, "Then as they got closer, the seeds were walking. They're all weevils." He said, "But after a while, it's all protein. Eat what you got, survive as you can." Then he got very serious. Now, let me tell you about Robbie Reisner. He was in World War II, he was an ace in Korea, and he was one of the senior leaders in Vietnam with the United States Air Force. When he was shot down, he's very religious. No human being, to my knowledge, has ever heard a curse word pass his lips. Even under the torture and the pain, he never cursed. In fact, you say darn around generally pushing an issue. He never smoked, he never drank, and I used to tease him a lot. I said, "You've got to have something wrong with you." He said, "Yeah, I have a favorite." And I said, "Well, come on, tell me, brother." He said, "I love to dance with the ladies." He said, "At squadron parties, there's not a girl there that I'm not going to dance with." Anyway, so we joke and we laugh about it. And then, again, you have to understand his religious background and his feelings. And he's a Cherokee Indian. He said one day, after they had tortured him for 365 days, they threw Robbie in a cell in almost total blackness for 10 months. He came close to going totally insane, but his faith kept him going. And he said, "You know, Lee, one day I heard a POW screaming." He said, "Oh, dear God, stop. Leave him alone. Let him go." And he said, "I threw myself flat on my face in the bottom of that cell, and I begged God in all his power and mercy to find a way to get me out to help that boy." He said, "And I realized it was me." He was listening to himself scream. And I mean, I got to tell you, this still gives me chills to think of it. Now, fast forward, Robbie's home, he's free again, he's a brigadier general. His oldest son died of a drug overdose. His wife left him for their minister of 25 years, but he never fades. He never changes, he keeps his faith, because that's what brought him through. And that's why he was one of the better leaders to me in Vietnam. You had Admiral Stockdale, who thought you should take the torture till you died. Robbie Reisner did not agree with that. And these are Robbie's rules. 1, don't bow in public. If forced to write 6th grade. Each day face the east and pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Before going to bed tonight, say the 23rd Psalm. These rules are given to Major Ken Huey by First Lieutenant Ron Maskin using the tap code method through the walls of their adjoining cells in the Thunderbird Inn section of the infamous Wallow prison, also called Hanoi Hilton. Major Huey had just come from the Nobby room, the most terrible place on the planet Earth, sometimes referred to as the Green Room or as Room 18, and was at the lowest point of his life, to the point of being suicidal. He credits General Reisner's rules as being spiritually uplifting as well as a reminding of his heritage and his duty. To this day, he believes they helped get him through the ordeal of being a prisoner in North Vietnamese and to bring him home with honor. That's General Reisner. Now I'm going to read you 2 poems, and then I'll let it go. This is one of my favorites. There was a Navy fighter pilot called Pete Schofield. Pete's father was an admiral in World War II under Nimitz and survived everything, and his son was a prisoner of war just short of 8 years. And the things that he wrote were marvelous. And this is one called The Watcher. Death passes through the courtyard, and patient the gaze of his eye, touching a few in the courtyard who feel his cold robes whisper by. None there are now who will stay him, yet few who have not felt his hand. Touch him with pain to repay him, and leave on the bodies his brand. Silent he watches them sicken, their once flowing life ebbing slow, and waits, for that tide will not quicken, his darkening kiss to bestow. He mocks them for times they have wasted, the memories of lives since long past, as they long for the wines yet untasted, love's treasure they squandered too fast. Sneering he hears them pretending, their hearts are not chilled by his breath, some, with their fantasies ending, who soon following his beckoning death. This one is one of the great ones. Jerry Coffey, who was a prisoner in 1965, was a Navy fighter pilot. Now, I'm Air Force, and I dearly love the Air Force hymns, the Air Force songs, and high flight. But let me tell you, this one, to me, has far more meaning than high flight ever could. One more roll. We toast our faithful comrades, now fallen from the sky, and gently caught by God's own hand to be with him on high. To dwell among the soaring clouds they knew so well before, from dawn patrol to victory roll at heaven's very door. And as we fly among them, we're sure to hear their plea, take care, my friend, watch your six, and do one more roll just for me. Each passed that through the walls, through the tap code, to another POW, who swore if we get out alive, the first dining in that we have, I'm going to repeat the poem. 7, 8 years later, when they're at the Air Force Academy for one of the big functions the Air Force have, they bring hundreds of general officers together. He was sitting next to Jimmy Doolittle and Curtis LeMay, two of the great icons of the United States Air Force. They're not men who are well known for emotion, except hard taskmasters. When he was done, not a word was heard of 4,000 people in that auditorium. You could have heard a pin drop, and the generals were crying from their eyes. I mean, that's how much the poem meant to them. There are many more in here, but this one is my favorite because it refers to the wall. This next and last piece is a quote from Major General R.H. Burris, spoken at the Vietnam Wall on July 16, 1993. It is a stunning commentary on just how strong emotions were 20 years after the end of the war, and still are 12 years later. Bud, now I should preface this, his son was a gunner and was killed in Vietnam, and he was at the wall to see his son's name. Bud, your mother and I are here with our friends from the Air Force Gunners Association. We are here to pay respects and to remember. We've been told lately that we should put aside the memories of Vietnam and forget for the sake of harmony. On behalf of all the veterans of Vietnam that I've had the privilege to speak to and all those who cannot speak for themselves, I have a message. We came back from hell and you spit on us. You looked upon the face of treason and you turned your head. You brought us back in body bags. You assaulted us in colleges and universities. You gave solace to the enemy and therefore put many more names on the wall. You do high honor to those who would not serve, and for all that, you ask us to forget. Well, I'll tell you, here's my message. We'll forget just as soon as the falling rain like mother's tears wash all those names off the wall. It's a hell of a statement. And I thank you for talking to me. I hope you look at the artifacts. Take a look at the book. It's worth it. Thank you.
Are we blessed or what? Huh? Unbelievable. Let me tell you a little bit about the book, just a second. I got on Lois Bowen because she's telling me, well, this book isn't printed yet. I said, well, get it printed. We're going to have books at this place. The day we do this, we got to have books. Well, we have 50. This book is not going to be the exact book that's going to be final printed. This is a special book. And there's 50 of them. They don't have 50 now because they sold a bunch this morning. But the books are $30. You can charge them whatever you want to do. And you can get both Lee and Wayne to sign them, autograph them right here. They're a piece of history. So I hope you consider buying a book. Here's what I want to talk about. We made a little bit of mistake when we were talking about the World War II POWs. We missed one. His name's Harold Levitt. Harold was in the Pacific. I know a little bit about Harold. He was on a B-29. And one night, one dark night over Tokyo, he got shot down. And Harold, along with a lot of other POWs that night, were at the Emperor Stable in Tokyo. There wasn't no room for him in there, so they brought out a bunch of them and just killed him right there. And these guys took their place. Harold got to live because it was 2 months before the end of the war. He got really lucky, and he's lived a wonderful life, and he's been a wonderful friend of mine for years. And I hope you guys, he's in that beautiful maroon sport coat there, and I hope you get to see him. He's the best. Okay, now let's talk about food. The food's, we got food in there, and it's in line, it's ready to go, but I'm going to let Michael talk. He's the guy that is trying to take Trey Radle's position, and I like the guy, and listen to him if you want to.
And if you don't want to, I don't know how you're going to avoid it. Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here, and let's hear it for Homer first.
One other thing. Eddie Harnack just come. Anybody know Eddie Harnack?
Oh, yeah.
The vet center. So if you got any complaints, he's here. Thanks, Eddie, for coming.
Thank you.
And Joe Whitehead, look here. 98.6. Nine! Seems like that.
Thank you, Homer, and thank everyone here for their military service and what you've done to sacrifice for this country and for all those who have endured what they've gone through. Too many young people today don't understand that. Too many people of the generations behind us need to learn, and it's our job to continue to teach them. And speaking of a guy who I think can teach pretty well, the gentleman's going to talk next. I want to get out of the way so he can talk. Michael Drycorn, I've had him on my radio show. I've interviewed a lot of these candidates, except for Kirk Clausen doesn't show up. But Michael shows up for things. He gives direct answers to questions, which most people in politics today don't even come close to doing. And I do want you to listen to him and consider him, because I'm extremely impressed. And while I don't endorse candidates directly as a radio host, I do encourage people strongly to listen to ones that I think know what they're talking about. Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate those kind words. Just to put it on the record, I am the only veteran on the ballot for the primary, and I think that's a friggin' shame. I believe that service to the nation should not just be in politics. It needs to be boots on the ground, or your hand on a cycle collective. Like those Army helicopters in Germany. And, anyway, the reason why I'm running.
So how are things going in the cook shack? Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah. Looks like a hungry crowd out there, Carl.
Yeah, I don't like pictures, Richard.
Fucking camera out of here. What's your fucking picture?
Like, really? What? Now, what happens is, bad things happen when good people fail to stand up and take action. So I can either sit back and just launch my vote for whoever's got the best advertising on television.
See if I can get in the back door
So
here.
I decided to get engaged for my name into the hat, and they conservatively follow that. Now, I grew up in Southern California. Back in the days when Governor Reagan was our governor out there, under a good conservative value. Went to his school system, so when I signed up for the Army,
Sneak in the back door. Excuse me. Oh, we got them packed in here. This must be the serving line.
You think?
How's it going?
Turn right here.
Gentlemen?
You're going to eat, we go to the back line there and all the way down.
Find the front.
A what?
That's what I was trying to find the front.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, how you doing?
I don't take good pictures, Richard.
Well, I know, I'm just trying to get the line here. You're doing a wonderful job, as usual.
These are a bit heavy for these plates. Thank you. Look at the amount of food they put on their plates.
It's heavy for the plate.
Yeah, too heavy for the plate.
Yes, ma'am. We'll have to work on that.
as a freshman congressman, I am not naive.
License to take care of old people rather than my girlfriend.
Hi, folks.
And now she's making, I got it.
Hi, kids. You're not out there with the patriotic bunch? No. Come on, lighten up. Be a Republican for a day.
It's not our
kill you?
stage.
Would it kill you? Probably.
Oh, it's so not us.
I can imagine.
All right, well, that's all I can.
Hi, Lauren.
Hey, Richard, how are you?
The view from behind the counter. Oh, we're scanning through. They're running. The ladies are all busy. I'm just in the way. Just in the way.
Right with you.
You certainly did get dressed up, Harold.
Yeah, well, I shine up pretty good.
You do. You certainly do.
Yeah, this is my ex-POW uniform.
Let me do a little zoom in here. Oh, look at that. Yes, indeed. Well, it's good to see you today, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very
Lovely
much.
weather for the event.
Yeah, we're very lucky. He has had good weather every one of these blowouts.
And it's